Just about every license of Creo Parametric these days comes with the Design Exploration Extension, or DEX, and along with flexible modeling, it's one of the least used yet most powerful modules that you have in Creo. And in this video, we'll take a look at how to use Design Exploration Extension in order to come up with different trades and concepts for changes that you want to make to your model. And first thing I want to point out about Design Exploration Extension is that you want to make sure you have the right models open before you start your session. So for example, right now I take a look and I've got this assembly open, I've got another part and some other different parts in here. And just be aware that when you start your Design Exploration Extension, it's going to be based on all the different models that you have open at that time. So you want to make sure that you don't have any unnecessary models open or sitting in your RAM. You might just want to do an erase, not displayed, just to be sure. And so to start my session of design exploration, I'll go to the File menu and then Manage Session. And here we have Design Exploration Session. And you can choose to open a previous session that you started, or you can start a new one, and that's what I'm going to do. And here we have the Start a Design Exploration Session dialog box. I highly recommend that you give this a good name. So for example, I'm working on a planetary gear assembly, and one other thing that I like to do is use today's date in the name as well. It just helps me keep track of what it is, and also helps to write a good description. And I'm just going to put in a partial one. I'm going to change the sun gear and remove components and evaluate mechanisms. So then I will click OK, and when I do that, now I get an additional tree open in the window, and this is my checkpoint tree. And so what you're going to do is you're going to make different changes to your model, and then at different points you're going to create a checkpoint that you can go back to, and then you can create different branches off of your checkpoints. So first off, when I have this model here, I decide that, hey, you know, this component over here, I don't think that I want it later on, but you know, I'm not sure, so let's delete it in my Design Exploration Extension session and click OK. And at this point, I might want to even add a checkpoint, which you can do from this button here, and then you're going to give it a name. And again, I strongly recommend that you give it a name, because I can't tell you how many times I've started a DEX session and then retrieved it a few days or a few weeks later, and I've got these checkpoints and I don't know what they're doing in my model. And so I'm going to say it's deleting that other ring component. And you can also write different keywords that will help you search for different checkpoints later on that will help you. So for example, maybe I'm going to put ring in here. And then I can click OK. There's this button here to do not show this dialog box the next time you add a checkpoint. That way, it'll just say checkpoint, checkpoint, checkpoint in here. And again, going back later on, it'll be hard to tell what those different checkpoints are. So there I have my checkpoint for deleting the ring component. And at this point, if I want to go back to where I was before, I can double click on it and double click on the second checkpoint there. All right, at this point, I'm going to add some mechanism functionality in here. So let's go to Applications, and where are you? There it is, Mechanism. And so for example, let's say that I want to throw in a motor in here. So I'm going to look for one of the connections, and the connection that I want, you can use the joints in here, but I happen to know that I want to spin the planet carrier for my gear, and it happens to be this component, which is connection number 3. And so I can look for connection 3 in the graphics area. I can query select to it. There it is. I've got it. Now from the mini toolbar, I can choose create a motor, and I'm going to define angular velocity. And for the profile details, I'm going to do a constant velocity of 90 degrees per second. That one is good, and so I'm going to hit the check mark. And now I'm going to throw in a few different gears. And Because this video isn't about gears and stuff like that, I'm going to edit out after creating the first one. So for example, let's say I want to define a gear between this component, and the diameter for this one is going to be 0.43. And for the second gear, I am going to connect it to the ring, and I'm looking for connection 1, and this one is going to have a pitch circle diameter of 1.05. I'm going to do another video where I'm going to go through all these different gear pair connections and how to set them up. But again, I'm going to put in an edit here because I'm going to throw in a couple more and test out the motor and then get out of here to go to my next checkpoint. All right, great. So I finished up my mechanism work where I threw in a bunch of different gear pairs and a motor and set up an analysis and ran it. So now I can get out of mechanisms mode, and I'm not going to save the results. And this is a great point at which to add another checkpoint. And this one I'm going to call mechanisms. And for the comment, hey, I threw in some gear pairs, motors, and analysis. Great. Click the OK button. And now I realize that, you know what, this component, yeah, it doesn't look right. I want to evaluate it, start making some changes. So let's do that. Maybe I'm going to open up this part in its own separate window. And again, this design exploration session applies to your Creo Parametric session. So you can open models, close models, jump between different things. And I decide that, hey, let's take a look at this. I think this is too long. And let's see, I am going to, let's try change this, maybe try a value of 0.25 and hit the check mark. And so there I have a different size for the component. So let's add another checkpoint, and let's call this one change the sun gear length, and click OK. And now I'm going to evaluate changing the number of teeth here. And when I start doing this one, I'm going to start creating branches underneath my current checkpoint. And so, for example, for this one, let's go and change, let's see, I'm going to start changing some sketches in here. And I'll probably edit some of this out because it's not relevant to the design exploration extension. But let's say I want to change that, and let's hit the check mark, and I need to change my pattern, number of instances. There we go. And so since I changed the number of teeth on my gear, let's add a checkpoint, and I'm going to call it teeth. And this time I had, what did I have? I had 8 teeth. And click the OK button. And now I'm going to go back over here in order to create another branch. So again, you can jump back and forth between these different steps and create additional branches underneath existing branches. For example, let me again edit definition of this one, and let's try changing this to 15 and hit the check mark. Let's change the pattern, and let's see, this should be 12. Hit the check mark, and here I can add in a checkpoint, and this will be teeth 12 in here. And so there you can see that I can either go down this way or go down this way over here and create the different branches underneath branches. And so I've been making all these different changes, and it's just going to be stored in this design exploration session file. And you can save this session, and it's going to save it in a .tmu file, which essentially contains the information about the different changes that I explored. So let's hit the save button, and I'm going to save it into my working directory and click the OK button. And Then if I decide that, if I want to commit to this change, I can click the accept button. But again, I've just been evaluating different things. I'm not sure yet. Maybe I have to run it by some other people. So I'm going to cancel out of my session. And you get this dialog box, and it tells you when a design exploration session closes, all models are restored to the original state in the Creo Parametric session. And I already saved my session, so I don't need to save it now. Or you could erase all models from memory and return to an empty Creo Parametric session. That's what I'm going to do to show you how to retrieve the original models and also how to retrieve the session. So let's click OK. And now I am in a clean session. If I go back to open up that assembly that I was working on, here you see it is back to the way that I had it. So for example, here's that component that I deleted in the session. I changed the length of this component, changed the number of teeth on there. And if I go into mechanisms mode, it doesn't have any of those gear pairs that I created. It doesn't have the motor, doesn't have the analysis. So again, I just made a bunch of different potential design changes in a subfile. And now I'm going to close everything out and erase not displayed to show you how to retrieve the session. So to do that, you can either click the open button and you can select it from your folder or workspace that you saved it to. That's one way of getting to it. The other way is by going to File, Manage Session, Design Exploration Session, and we can, Manage Session, Design Exploration Session, and then Open. And there we have our TMU file in the working directory. I will select it, and here it lists all the different models that it is going to retrieve. And I realized, oh wait, I had this model open. I didn't need it for anything, so I'm not going to retrieve that particular one. And then click the OK button. And now I have the different parts open. You'll notice that it went to the part that I last had open. If I go to the drop-down menu, here are all the different models from the session. And I can go in here, and let's say that I want to go to this checkpoint. So there's where we change the length of the component. I can double click on this one to get back to its state. And now if I go into mechanisms mode, you'll notice that yes, we have the motor. Here we have all those gear pairs that I created. Here I have the analysis that I created. Let's close out of here. And let's say I want to go to the configuration with 12 teeth, and I say, hey, you know what? I actually like that one. I want to commit to it. At this point, now I can hit the check mark. So let's assume that I've had a design review. Maybe I've gotten some opinions from other people, or maybe I just decide that, yes, this is the way that I want to go. Now, when I hit the accept button, it's going to say that this current status will be applied to the Creo Parametric session and allows me to save the design exploration session. I'll click the OK button, and now we have the changes committed to our different models, and I can hit the save button. So again, with design exploration, you can basically put in different potential changes that you are considering and make these different branches and paths, and then later on commit to them. And it saves you the process of what a lot of people do, where they make a bunch of save as, and they're doing a bunch of separate files, and they've got to manage them, and later on decide which one that they want to use, and then reincorporate it back into the next higher level assembly. Design exploration just makes trade studies and concept generation so simple and easy. I hope you enjoyed this video. For more information, please visit www.creowindchill.com. If you learned something from this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you liked this video, please click the subscribe button to be informed when new videos are uploaded. Thank you very much.